In this video, we're diving into the backstage of Los Angeles, where the Dodgers season has turned into a true three-act drama. In the first act, a veteran star faces doubts and injuries, but finds an unexpected turnaround that could redefine the team's future. In the second, a young promising phenomenon arrives with sky-high expectations, but runs into challenges that put his potential to the test. And in the third, the pressure builds. Consecutive losses, strategic decisions, and opportunities for temporary players show that every move can be decisive. If you want to follow everything closely, understand each decision by the front office and every twist on the field, leave your like now and subscribe. Here, every detail matters to those who live and breathe Dodgers. First news. Imagine a completely dark screen. Silence. Suddenly, a question cuts through the air. What if the most unlikely piece of the Dodgers puzzle was precisely the one that was almost discarded? That is a dilemma Los Angeles faces right now. A dilemma that mixes numbers, emotion, risk, and history. We are talking about Max Muncy, an all-star whose season started with stumbles, criticism, and an uncertain future, but who also staged a turnaround worthy of a movie script. The Dodgers, one of the most traditional franchises in MLB, know very well the weight a single decision can carry. This is a team that has built its reputation on bold choices, despite still playing at a high level when almost no one else did. And once again, management finds itself in one of those moments where any path could redefine not only the season, but also the future of the organization. Because it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about identity. It's about legacy. And above all, it's about believing in those who still have something to prove. Before we dive into this story, a quick note for you following everything closely. Here we reveal the behind the scenes that many overlook, the details that make all the difference. If you're the type who doesn't want to be left out, leave your like now and subscribe. Because here, every rumor, every detail, and every potential market move is treated as what it really is, decisive. Now, let's get straight to the point. According to Jeff Passan of ESPN, Muncy has a $10 million team option for next year and is under contract with the team through 2026. At first glance, it seems like just another contractual clause. But when we look at what happened in 2024, the weight of this detail becomes enormous. The start of the season was a nightmare. In his first 28 games, Muncy posted only a .180 batting average, a .531 OPS, and perhaps most shocking for a player of his caliber, 0 home runs. None. For many fans, it was a sign the All-Star was finished. For some analysts, management should already start thinking about replacements. But that's where the story changes. The diagnosis of astigmatism in his right eye brought a revelation. Muncy's vision was compromised, and the solution was simple, almost trivial, but transformative: a pair of glasses. In his first game with the new lenses, a home run. As if baseball had given back not just his vision, but his power. From that day on, the numbers spoke for themselves. A .295 average, 8.430/.611 line, and an impressive 1.040 OPS. It wasn't just a recovery. It was a reinvention. Muncy went from target of criticism to centerpiece. From doubt to argument. From burden to protagonist. But baseball is never a straight line. And Muncy knows this better than anyone. Mid-season, a scary collision with a runner trying to steal third left his leg at an angle no one wanted to see. Many believed it would be the end of his journey that year. But against all odds, he returned in just a month. And when he came back, he didn't just return, he shined. In the 8 games after recovery, Muncy posted a .348 average and a 1.401 OPS. Elite numbers. Numbers of someone who doesn't just survive, but imposes himself. But once again, fate knocked at the door. An oblique injury sidelined him for weeks, bringing back the question that never seems to leave his path. How long can he maintain this level? It's at this point that the Dodgers backstage gets even more interesting. Barnes and Chris Taylor, veterans who lost ground during the season, show what happens when production doesn't match the team's confidence. Many believe that if it weren't for the turnaround after glasses, Muncy would have followed the same path. But his resurgence changed the way management sees him. Now, the choice is both clear and complex. Keeping Muncy for another $10 million means believing he can still be a difference maker. Letting him go, on the other hand, would open space for new bets, but also the risk of losing someone who has proven, in practice, that he still has fuel in the tank. The possibilities are electrifying. If the Dodgers keep Muncy, they gain depth, offensive power, and the presence of a hitter opponent's respect. Without him, the pressure increases on a roster already hit by injuries, especially in the pitching staff. And in the middle of this chessboard, the big question arises: which version of Muncy will the Dodgers have in the postseason? The early season one, fragile, powerless, and surrounded by doubt, or the reborn version, capable of carrying the lineup with elite numbers and clutch hits? That's the doubt hanging in the air. That's the question that could decide the team's fate in October and even in the next season. Now I want to hear from you, fan. If it were your decision, would you keep Muncy, believing rebirth is real, or would you make room for new pieces, risking regret later? Leave your opinion in the comments. Your vision may be different from the front office, but it is part of this conversation. News number 2. The stands are empty. The field, lit by the dim night, seems to hold a secret. And the question hangs in the air, almost like an inevitable provocation. Has the biggest phenomenon of the offseason already started to unravel before our eyes? His name is Roki Sasaki, a prodigy at just 23 years old. In Japan, treated as a legend. In MLB, announced as a pitcher who could change everything. When he decided to leave his homeland and face the biggest stage in baseball, it seemed inevitable that the Dodgers would be at the center of this story. Not just because they have more resources than any other club, but because they built a brand so magnetic that it attracts talent even in scenarios where financial power doesn't matter. The off-season was consumed by this saga. The baseball world waited anxiously for the young phenomenon's decision. And when, predictably, he arrived in Los Angeles, the celebration was immediately accompanied by accusations. The Green Grape Brigade emerged from hiding, denouncing alleged shady backroom deals and clandestine agreements. The Dodgers seemed, once again, to be playing in a league of their own. But over time, the protests quieted, because on the field, the story unfolded differently. Sasaki did not ignite the league as promised. He wasn't even available to deliver what was expected of him. The shoulder, initially treated as a minor setback, despite still playing a high level, weeks turned into months. And now, facing difficulties in rehabilitation, the question arises, was all this hype worth it? It's impossible to deny the fascination around Sasaki. Some even called him perhaps the greatest pitching prospect of all time. The fastball was the explanation. Rated 70 on the 20 to 80 scale, capable of regularly hitting triple digits. It wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon. Something that set Sasaki apart from the rest. And that's why his arrival in the United States was surrounded by almost unreal expectations. But MLB reality is relentless, and Sasaki discovered this firsthand. Despite using his special heater pitch in about 50% of his throws, he couldn't control the strike zone. His strikeout rate was only 15.6%, far below the expected standard for someone with his velocity. Worse, his walk rate exploded to 14.3%. Two clear signs that there was neither command nor consistency. And the punishment came quickly. Hitters didn't forgive him. Many of his pitches flew far, resulting in an average of 1.57 home runs allowed per 9 innings. The 4.72 ERA was already concerning, but the FIP, which reveals true performance discounting external variables, was even harsher, 6.20. For a talent called revolutionary, these numbers were almost a cultural shock. One could argue that part of this was due to nerves, the adaptation process, and of course, the injury. But it was precisely during rehabilitation that the biggest warning sign appeared. The velocity disappeared. In May, his fastballs dropped to the 90 miles per hour range, far from the arsenal that once intimidated the world. His last appearance raised even more doubts. Against the Houston Astros AAA affiliate, the fastball that should have reached 100 miles per hour averaged 94.4 miles per hour. This is miles away from the 157 to 164 kilometers per hour that made him a legend in Japan. And without that velocity, without precise location, Sasaki became an easy target. He was hit hard, over and over again. The numbers in Oklahoma City leave no room for optimistic interpretations. In 4 games, he posted a 7.02 ERA, a portrait of fragility, insecurity, of a talent that once seemed infallible but now stands on the edge of an abyss. Behind the Dodgers scenes, the inevitable question echoes. Did they win the most contested race of the offseason, but did they win what really matters? If Sasaki remains in this limited version, if velocity doesn't return, if command doesn't appear, all the media attention, all the effort, and even the behind-the-scenes accusations will have been in vain. And here the possibilities come in. The pessimistic scenario shows Sasaki unable to perform, stuck in mediocre numbers and remembered as a promise unfulfilled. But there's also the other side. If recovery is slow but real, if velocity returns, if he regains command, the Dodgers will have in their hands something that few clubs in history have had, an arm that can change generations. Sasaki's fate hangs between these two extremes. Neither the initial hype nor the current disappointment tells the whole story. Time will be the judge. And now, I want to hear from you, fan. Can Sasaki still become the phenomenon everyone expected? Or are we already seeing the beginning of one of the biggest illusions in recent MLB history? Write in the comments, because your view is part of this debate. News number 3. The night seemed perfect for Los Angeles. The stadium was silent, lit only by the floodlights, carrying that tension that only baseball can create. One out separated the Dodgers from victory. Everything seemed set for glory. But baseball has its surprises, and that night would prove it cruelly. Meanwhile, away from the main field, Chucky Robinson received his call, a third-generation catcher, 30 years old, who carries the same name as his father and grandfather, both minor league players who never reached MLB. Robinson, drafted in the 21st round in 2016 by the Houston Astros, spent years trying to establish himself. He played 685 minor league games, with a batting average of .258 and 69 home runs. In MLB, his opportunities were rare. 51 games split between Cincinnati in 2022 and the Chicago White Sox in 2024, with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and 17 hits in 129 at-bats. Now he was with the Dodgers, not as a permanent solution, but to fill a temporary gap caused by the daily play of Will Smith and the recent injury of Dalton Rushing, sidelined for 15 days. Robinson will likely stay only until Smith returns, then go back to AAA. Even so, his call-up symbolizes a lot. The struggle of a player who was already released twice this season, yet still has a chance to prove his value at a high level on one of the most important stages in baseball. But that night, he was not in the starting lineup against the Baltimore Orioles. The focus was elsewhere, and the game began with the sense that victory was inevitable. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a phenomenal young pitcher, dominated the field. 8 2/3 innings without allowing a hit. The Dodgers offense had given him 3 runs of support, and it seemed nothing could disrupt his flawless performance. The final batter, Jackson Holliday, faced a 2-1 fastball. The ball grazed the wall, a home run that could have been prevented, but the right fielder, Andy Pages, made no attempt. Victory seemed certain. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, or almost everyone, because baseball is ruthless. With 2 outs, manager Dave Roberts pulled Yamamoto and handed the ball to Blake Trinan, his trusted bullpen weapon. But Trinan was not sharp. He allowed a double, then consecutive walks to 2 batters, loading the bases and tying the game at 3-3. Roberts, with no better options, turned to Tanner Scott. Scott also failed to contain the offense. A simple 2-run hit ended the game and turned what would have been a historic night for Yamamoto into a bitter loss. It was the Dodgers' 5th consecutive loss. Their 78-64 record left them only 1 game ahead of the San Diego Padres in the National League West race. September started turbulently. The Dodgers had yet to win, while the Padres lost 4 or 5 games, including a loss to Colorado. Ironically, the Orioles, who had swept the Padres earlier in the month, were now 1 game away from repeating the feat against Los Angeles. Within this tension, every game, every decision, and every substitution carried double weight. Players like Chucky Robinson, even without being in the starting lineup, symbolize the need for depth and flexibility on a roster fighting for every point. Every pitcher called from the bullpen, every strategic choice by Roberts, every lineup substitution becomes a chess move capable of deciding the season. The historical context also matters. The Dodgers, known for operating in a different playing field from all other MLB teams, have more resources, prestige, and experience managing critical situations. They build a brand that attracts talent and maintains constant pressure on every decision made within the club. But even unlimited resources cannot always prevent nights like this, when the season's narrative can change in seconds. This string of losses and the pressure of the race with the Padres affect not only on-field performance. It affects the team's mindset, each player's preparation, and even bullpen strategy. Every bad pitch, every disputed decision, every defensive error is amplified when the margin for error is minimal. And in this scenario, unexpected opportunities arise for players like Robinson. The right moment may be brief, but it can change the perception of a player who has already faced ejection and the adversities of the minor leagues. Fan, the inevitable question is, will the Dodgers be able to maintain the lead until the end of the season? Or are these consecutive losses a warning that the NL West race will be even tighter than expected? And within that, what will be the role of temporary players, the bullpen, and Robert's strategic decisions in this outcome? So, fan, after following all this, the question remains, what will be the Dodgers' fate in this final stretch of the season? Will the veteran continue to be the key piece? Will the young phenomenon manage to prove his full potential? And will the temporary players and strategic decisions be enough to maintain the lead in the NL West? We want to hear your opinion. Comment below what you would do if you were in charge of the team. And of course, if you want to keep up with all the rumors, behind-the-scenes stories, and season highlights, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Here, every detail matters, and your view is part of this story.